Today is going to be a juicy, juicy, juicy one. Today is all about shifting your money shit. And, we've been talking a lot about us as a person and who we are as a whole and our standards and, all of that kind of stuff the last few days. And today I really want to tap into the money piece of it, the money story, because the reality is that if the money was where we wanted to be, we wouldn't care about it as much. The reason why we're in the situation that we're in is because we've made it normal. We've become accustomed to the way that things are. We've become accustomed to, either the lack of money, the abundance of money, the amount of debt, the amount of bills, the amount of expenses, like all of that has just become normal for us. And even though it is not usually what we want, I don't know many people that are just like, yeah, I'm good with money. I don't want any more. I'm perfect. I'm good, right? Most people are in a place where they're like, I wish I could just get to this point, right? I wish I could just get here. So we're going to explore that today, talk a little bit more about why we've kind of been stuck in a cycle when it comes to money. And I have lots of journaling prompts for you guys for today's homework to really, really just dive deep and explore this, because once you can figure out why, then you can start to shift. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be an easy shift or this. It can be. When we talk about instant manifestation, we'll talk about how things can literally shift like this. One of the things that I posted in actually one of my other groups is, how quickly do you think that money can come to you? Do you think it has to take a long time? Do you think if it's a bigger amount of money, it has to take a long time? Do you feel like smaller amounts of money can come quicker? Do you feel like any amount of money can come in an instant? What are your beliefs around how quickly money can come into your life and how easily money can come into your life? Because I think we all have our heads wrapped around this idea that money can come quickly. Money can come easily. We all have the ability to make money. We all have the ability to call money in. It's the keeping of the money, right? That is a hard thing for a lot of people, right? So somebody might have a really great month, they have their biggest month ever, but then their car breaks down or they get into an accident or the plumbing goes in their house or something happens, right? Because there's this normalization here where it's I got to balance out. So even if I have this really big month, I'm also going to call in a really big expense or really big expenses to balance this out so that place that I'm at with money stays the same, right? Because that is what's normal. That's what feels really good. Even if it's not what we want, it's what's comfortable. So you'll hear me say this a lot during this program. And I really just want you guys to know that, because once you know it, then you can be like, no, this is bullshit and I want to change it, right? But yes, the more that you are comfortable in a place, you're going to do whatever it takes to stay in that place, even if it's not exactly what you want, especially with a really big month or just had unexpected money come in. But then on the flip side, you also had unexpected expenses come and places for that new money to go. Let's dive into the training for today. I have just a lot of different things that I want to talk about and explore. And then your homework for today is just going to be journaling. I'm going to give you guys a bunch of journaling prompts once the lesson is over. I'm just going to copy and paste the journaling prompts into the group or into the chat here so that you guys can really figure this stuff out, right? Because, we all have a money story, right? We all have a money story. And actually, those of you that were in Meant for Millions, the very first thing that we did I think it was the pre-work. I don't even think it was week 1. I think in the pre-work where I had you guys think about what is the current money situation, right? What's your bare minimum? What's this is all I need to survive. It sucks. I don't want to be in this place of survival, but if I were to think about stripping everything down to the bare minimum, what's the bare minimum that I need to survive? Then I had you guys think about what is the goal? What's the aspiration? What do you want so that you can have overflow, so that you can have abundance, so that you can have extra? What is that? And then the third thing I asked, and you guys can also do this as well if you weren't in the program or if you want to do it again, the third thing I asked was, what is the average monthly income that you're making? And so what was really, shocking, but not really, was that the majority of people, this is what I need to survive, was very, very close, or sometimes very like equal to what they were actually bringing in. So they were actually calling in, and I think the majority of us do this, is we call in what is normal, right? We call in what we need. Like, this is the point that I want to make, is that we are always provided for. We always get what we need, but at the bare minimum. So we talked the other day about, having it all, right? Some of us have been fed stories from when we were a child, not only that we couldn't have what we want, but also that having any extra or having any overflow or having any excess was being selfish, greedy, asking for too much, right? So these are the kinds of things that I want you guys to really think about. I know we did a lot on the forgiveness stuff, but when it comes specifically to money, like, what are those thoughts and feelings that you have around money? What are the thoughts and feelings that you have around overflow and abundance? Do you, on some level, on your subconscious level, feel like it's wrong or bad to have extra? So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I think it's just so interesting that the majority of people are making and are bringing in and are calling in at least their bare minimum. Like, nobody's out on the streets, right? Like, nobody's on zero. Nobody's not able to feed their kids. We're all getting the bare minimum of what we want. And the reason why you're getting the bare minimum of what you want is because it's acceptable. It's been acceptable. It's normal. It feels good. So that's why that's happening. So that's what needs to shift in order for the money paradigm to shift. So one of the things that I do is I always say yes. I have the money, I can say yes. There's other situations where I get put into this place of like, should I spend this money? But I get to this place where I'm like, I really feel like this investment or this thing is going to benefit me greatly. This thing is going to benefit me greatly. I know it's going to, take me to the next level in my business. It's, whether that's hiring a team member, whether that's hiring a coach, whether that's, getting something else done in my business. And I might feel like, oh, it feels scary to spend that money. But I'm always the type of person who I allow for more money to come in by raising the expectation, right? So let's just say you're at here. You're at a point where it's like you're getting your needs met, right? But there's no extra, there's no overflow. If you were to somehow make your bare minimum higher, you would automatically be in a place where you would be provided for that as well. The problem is that we say no, or we don't take that step, or we don't invest in that thing because we're thinking to ourselves like, I have to get the money first and then say yes. So one of the tricks for me is like, you just got to raise the bare minimum, right? Because if you're always getting the bare minimum, if you raise the bare minimum, then you're still going to get that. So, for me, it is always about saying yes first and allowing the universe and God to provide for me, because I took that leap of faith, because I said yes. How many of you guys struggle with saying yes when it feels like you don't know if you can make it happen? We're addicted to the chase. We're addicted to not having necessarily enough. Because the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't normal, if it wasn't okay for us to have the bare minimum, if it wasn't okay for us to be at the place that we're at, we wouldn't be there. That's the bottom line. So how do you shift that? Like, how do you shift that thinking and that perspective of, okay, this is not okay anymore. It's unacceptable for me to have not enough. It's unacceptable for me to have just enough. You have to raise the bar, and you have to have a place for that money to go. Any of you who have taken any of the money trainings with me before, it's got to go somewhere, and you have to be excited about it. Like, the money that you want has to come from a desire, not a need. That's the other thing too. It's like, most of the time when we want money, it's because we need it. Right? So it's like, we need it to pay our bills. We need it so that we can save. We need it so that we can do that. So need is actually a low vibrational energy. Whereas desire holds a different charge. So anytime you need money for anything, you're probably not going to get it because you are not in a state and a place or an energy to attract it. So you have to get out of the need thing and know, because it's been proven to you, know that you're going to be okay. You're going to be provided for. You're not going to be thrown out on the streets. All of the money fears and all of the money worries that we have, they're not even true. They're just like stuff that we've made up in our head, right? Whether it's from stories that we've gotten from other people, but it's not actually true. And we've talked about this as well. So what is the desire around the amount of money that you want? What is the true, what is that deep desire? Is it, to provide for your family? Is it to leave a legacy? Is it because if it's just to pay your bills, you're going to get provided for in that way. You'll get provided for to just pay your bills and that's it, right? So there's got to be more to it. There's got to be desire around it. And one of the things I learned recently is that even when you say you want something, it still comes from a place of lack, which was really interesting to me and very eye-opening to me. And when you want something, you're basically just confirming and solidifying that you don't have it. So it's coming from a place of lack. So want and desire are two very different things. Need and desire are two very different things. So if you're always in that need place of I need X amount of dollars so that I could pay my bills, so that I could get ahead, so that I can start saving, it's low vibe energy. It's not attracting energy. Gwen says that used to run the show for me. My go-to response for everything was, I can't afford it. Well, now I can afford a lot of things and I say yes to a lot easier, but there's still a contraction when it comes to bigger investments. I'm shifting completely past that though and saying yes to investing more in myself, my business, and my future. Love it, Gwen. Christine says, I think the reason I have issues with saying yes to my business when it feels scary is because I teach the opposite with personal finances. When it comes to big purchases that my clients want, I want them to save up and pay for it, not put it on credit cards because many of them are on salary. So that's really interesting too, Christine, right? So there's kind of you have two paradigms going on. You have two dynamics going on, right? And you're having just a little bit of friction. That's the word I'm looking for, friction with. And the reality is that you are not your clients, right? You have a very different situation. You are teaching people the tools that they need to make the best financial decisions for themselves. For you, it's different because you own a business. You're not getting paid a fixed salary. You have the capability and the ability, and I know you already know this, Christine, to make as much money as you want, right? So I would explore that a little bit more, Christine, because that definitely could be one of the reasons why that there's just a little, you're not getting there, right? Because there's these little things that are just happening, right? And thoughts that are coming into your head of can I do this? Is that out of integrity? So that's really interesting, Christine. Thank you for sharing that. Gwen says, damn, that is so eye-opening. Yeah. So, want is better than need because I don't think want necessarily comes from a desperate place, but it's still not a high vibrational place to want something because it comes from lack. I don't have this, I want this, right? I don't have this, I need this, but need is very, very low vibration. Need is very desperate. So one of the things I also talk about a lot is desperate versus determined. There's a different energy there. So if you ever get into a place where you are selling something, you're running your business and you're starting to feel this oh my God, this many people have to sign up. This person has to say yes to my coaching. What if you're getting in that place, I want you to flip that to determined. So desperate is very different than determined. So stay on that place of being determined and having a desire around the money that you want to come in, and it will come in much easier. I remember that there were times in my business where I would have that. I would right, I need this money this month or else I'm in trouble, or I gotta put something on a credit card or whatever. And then I would get this wave of money, right? If I got money, it was always easier to make money once I had it. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to like formulate how I want to say it. But whenever I had the money and I knew that I was taken care of, it was always easier to make money. In the times where there was months that were lower and it was harder to make money. And this is why. It's because the energy around the money was bad. The energy around the money was needy. It was desperate. It was low vibe. But when I already knew that I had the money and everything was taken care of and I had plenty, that's when more money came in. So the idea here is to be able to get yourself into that state, even if it doesn't look like it's going to happen. You have to have the faith that you are always taken care of. And if you look back into your history, right? If you look back in your experiences, you're going to see that. Like, you're going to see more of a pattern of you making it, more of a pattern of you being able to, even if it was at the bare minimum, you survived, you were good, whatever. Like, even if you had to skip a payment, even if you had to be late on a bill, like, it was okay, right? Like, you didn't die, you were fine. It was fine, right? We always think about like, what's the worst case scenario, right? And then we harp on that and we hold on to that. So what I want you guys to think about for your journaling is like, what is the current money story? Probably, like I said, have done this before, but what is that money story? What's the current money story? And what I really want you to think about, because you know, that's something that you can easily do, thinking about your beliefs and your stories around money and how easy it can come to you and how fast it can come to you. And, you know, all of the stigmas that we have. Has that been your money story? How long has it been? And now I'm only asking you to reflect on that for the purposes of knowing how long you've made it normal. So I've talked about before, like how I had this like big money goal. And I had the same money goal for like, I don't even know. I want to say it was like 18 months or something. Like it was like the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it was like, why? Like, why is it the same thing? Like, why is it, you know, like, because usually our goals are like changing, right? Like we'll make a goal, we'll hit it. And then it's like, okay, what's the next one? We'll hit it. What's the next one? We'll hit it. But when you're in this like cycle and you're in this place of like, it's like freaking Groundhog Day. Every month it's Groundhog Day when it comes to your expenses, when it comes to what's coming in, when it comes to what's left, it's Groundhog Day. Like, I want you to just have an awareness around how long you have fostered that particular money story. And what is amazing though, is that I always talk about this, like, trauma, like any trauma that you've experienced, any stories that you've had, anything that's been going on can change in an instant. It doesn't need to take as long for you to fix that money story. So if you've had the same money story for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, it doesn't have to take you 2 years or 5 years or 10 years to switch that story. So I'm going to have you guys just be honest. What is the money story? What are all the money beliefs? What is all the money shit? How long has this been going on? What is the real reason that it hasn't changed? This is something that's, it's probably not going to be an easy answer or easy question to answer, but there is a reason. There is a reason why it's been the same over and over and over again. And it's your job to figure out. So, you know, some of the things I think about is responsibility, right? So a lot of people, like, they don't want to make more money because on a subconscious level, they think it's going to be more responsibility, whether that's I have to serve more clients, whether that is I'm going to be expected to do this every month and I don't know if I can live up to that, whether that's, you know, I have to hire more employees, whatever that is. Like, what are the subconscious things of why you're preventing yourself from going to that next level? Because they're there. If they weren't there, you'd already be there. Does that make sense? So what is the real reason why the money story hasn't changed and why it literally feels like Groundhog Day over and over and over and over and over again? If you've had a point where you did make a quantum leap, I also want you to explore that too. What was going on in those moments? What was your thought process? What was your energy? What happened? What changed in you? What story was lifted or let go or forgiven that allowed you to have that leap? And then if you're back now at a plateau, why? So one of the best ways that I like to explore these things is by self-coaching. So basically what I do is in my journal or on a separate piece of paper, I will write these questions out, right? Like, okay, what's the money story? How long has it been this way? Okay, it's been this way for, at least 2 years. I've been wanting the same thing for 2 years, and it's like just a cycle. It just won't stop, won't change. And then I'll ask myself like, okay, well, what's the real reason why it hasn't changed then, Jen? And this is where it gets a little weird, but this is what I do with my journaling when I want to really understand and really get to the heart of it. Because just like we talked about before, there's always going to be those initial answers. There's always going to be the things that instantly pop up into your head. There's always going to be that surface level thing. And I want you to go deeper. So the way that I do my self-coaching is I'll ask myself the question, I'll answer it. And typically the answer is a very then I say, it's like, I'm having this conversation with my 5-year-old self. Okay. I'm having this conversation with my 5-year-old self because 5-year-old kids, they want to know why everything. So you tell them something and they're like, okay, mom, but why? And so basically I will have this conversation with myself in my journal until I get to the root cause or the root issue of whatever it is. So for example, what's the real reason it hasn't changed? Well, my initial answer is going to be, I don't have the right team. I don't have the right team in place. I don't have enough people to help me. That's it. That's why I haven't been able to get to the next level. And then I would ask myself, but why? Oh, why don't I have the right team in place? Well, I don't know. I've kind of been complaining about not having the right team in place for the last 2 years too. Well, why haven't you changed that? So I'll just kind of go on like that. And it's probably going to feel weird if you haven't done any kind of like self-coaching before, but that's essentially what I do to kind of get to the heart of the issue. And I'll just keep asking why until I feel like I have the real reason why. So and I'll copy and paste all of these journaling questions for you guys as well. So you don't have to feel like you missed anything or that you have to write it down. So alongside of, why hasn't it changed, is for you to think about what feels comfortable about where you're at financially. What feels comfy about it? Is it, again, going back to the responsibility? Is it that you're not going to ruffle feathers with your partner? Is it, what feels comfy about it? Do you feel like you would have a lot more responsibility if you had more money? Do you feel like you would have to pay more taxes if you had more money? Do you feel like you would have to, there's so many things. So many things. One of the things I hear a lot from people is like having to keep up with that success. So people that have the swift thing of success or money, they get into their heads about oh my God, I always have to do this good now or I suck. Can't go down. And then they put all the stress and pressure on themselves to keep performing. And so in order to avoid that, they just stay the same. So I really want you guys to explore this because this is going to be very telling as to why it hasn't happened for you yet, but also it's going to be really revealing to you and allow you to change it and shift it. So next is going to be that what is the new money story? So write the new money story as if. Christine says, nothing feels comfy about having my current level of income. Well, I'm going to address that and say something does. Something has to, Christine, because if it didn't, you wouldn't be there. Something feels good about that. Something feels good or safe or easy about being where you're at. Because if not, you would not be there. So what is the new money story? What is the new story that you want to write for yourself when it comes to money? For me, if I think about the things that I want, it's obviously I want to, have enough money to pay my business expenses. I want to have enough money to pay myself a salary of X amount of dollars. I want to have extra money for savings. If you're talking about savings or investments or anything like that, I also encourage you to be very specific about where you want that money to go. So, investments and savings. That's not exciting. It's not exciting to say that. So, for me, I realized that that's why I didn't have extra for savings, was because it didn't feel exciting for me to save. It just didn't feel exciting. It was like, whatever, what am I saving for? To pay off a debt? It just doesn't sound exciting. There's no desire in saving. I had to look at it differently and say, you know what? I want to leave a legacy for my son. I want to make sure that his schooling, right, when he goes to college, part of his schooling so that he doesn't have to go and take loans and have, student loans for 20 years of his life. Investments, it was like, yeah, I want to have a high net worth. I want to invest in real estate properties. So if savings and investments and even like the overflow portion of your money, be very specific about what you want it for. So if you're even like for me, I'm like, I want to see this number in the bank. Like I desire to see this number in the bank because it would just make me feel so good and so safe, right? So just get really specific and connected to where all of this money is going to go in your new money story. Maybe it's, having your taxes prepaid. Maybe it's always being ahead on all of your expenses. Maybe it's having 6 months worth of business expenses saved. Like whatever it is, just be very, very specific, or else it ain't gonna happen. So what will it take for you to get to that new money story? So once you have written out the new money story, being very specific about where you want the money to be, how you want to feel around money, how easy you want money to come in. I also want you guys to explore that as well. What will it take for you to get there? Money-wise, I always like to be very specific. Like I know, and I actually feel like the reason why when I wasn't hitting that goal was because I was actually good where I was. Like, because it was like, well, I didn't need millions of dollars. Like, well, I don't want millions of dollars because I don't need it. Like, I legitimately, I don't need it. Like I have a very simple lifestyle, and yes, I like nice things, but I don't need all this abundance of money. And it was because I didn't have a connection to what I would do with this extra money. So having that connection, what will it take for you to get to that new money story? What needs to change? What needs to shift? What are the beliefs that are holding you back when it comes to getting to the next one? I have a lot of people that are like, oh, I want to pay off my debts. I want to pay off student loans. I want to pay my bills. I want to pay off this credit card. And it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like nobody wants to save or make money just so that they could give it to somebody else, right? So there's got to have that underlying desire around it. I wish to be debt free and have $1 million of net worth, right? So get into that feeling of what it actually is for you and the desire around it. Now I want you to think about what I talked about in the beginning, which was how can you begin to normalize the money being there? Because the reason why you're at where you're at, again, is because it's normal. It's what is expected. It's your bottom line. It's it's acceptable to you. Because if it wasn't acceptable to you, it would not be the story. Okay, so how can you begin to normalize? So is it, that you are implementing some of the standards that we talked about back in day 2? Maybe it's, okay, well, now that I've hired a cleaner, now I know I need to make an extra $300 a month, which means I need to book an extra client a month. Now, if you wait and say, well, once I get my next client, or once I'm making, X amount of dollars per month, then I'll hire the cleaner. Never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So what can you do now to start normalizing, whether it's the activities, whether it's, getting into a place where your bottom line is higher, even if that includes overflow that you want for having fun or traveling or, pampering yourself, things like that. So how can you start to normalize some of these things and get your bare minimum up so that you can make room for more money to come in? How can you also normalize, this is a good one, how can you also normalize what needs to be done to get there? So let's say, for example, in order for you to get to your next level income, you need to work with an additional 12 clients. For some of you, it might be like you need 100 more people to buy your programs. You have to be ready, because the reality is the other reason why you're not getting what you want is because you're not ready for it yet. So if in order for you to make that leap to your new income level, you need to make space for 100 new clients, you got to be ready now, right? Your calendar has to be clear and ready for those clients. You maybe have to have another team member ready to have all of these new clients. So I want you to explore maybe some of the things that you're saying that you want and how they're out of alignment with what you currently can accept and what you currently can call in, if it has to do with your business, clients, things like that. So are you ready to get, $100,000 payments in your PayPal today? Are you ready to serve, 100 clients? Are you ready to serve 12 new clients that you need in order to hit that income level today? If not, what are some of the things that you can start doing to normalize not just the money being there, but also what needs to be done in order to make that money come flow easily? For me, one of the things, I really just feel like the financial freedom is for you to be able to say yes to all the things you want to do, be, and have without question, right? Saying yes because you want to say yes, and never not saying yes because of money. Like, that for me is true freedom. And the flip side of that is not having to say yes to something that you really want to say no to because of money. So saying yes before, if it's something that feels right and good for you right now to take you to the next level, because the universe doesn't know, right? The universe just knows that, hey, I brought you this thing that you're asking me for. I brought you this key or this person or this opportunity because this is what's going to help you get what you are saying that you desire. And if you're like, nope, sorry, don't want it. I have to say no to this. I don't want it. You're like sending out these mixed signals. Yeah, I want this, but I don't want to do the things that is required to get it, right? So you're just sending these mixed signals all the time. So I want you to explore that too. Where are you sending mixed signals? To the universe, God, to the money angels, right? Where are you sending mixed signals? Saying you want something, but I'm not actually ready for it. I want something, but I'm going to say no right now because I don't have the money for it, or I don't see a way to get the money for it. Christine says, I think my next team member that will need to be added is a client manager. So I guess I need to start interviewing so they'll be ready when I need that person. Exactly. Just that simple act of doing that, Christine, even if you don't hire right away, the act of you going out there and knowing that in order for me to take on more clients, I need a client manager. And I need to start doing that now. Because if I were to get an influx of clients right now, I would not be prepared. I would not be ready. So think about that stuff. What are the thoughts, feelings, and emotions associated when it seems like it's not going to happen? So let's say, for example, you want something. Let's say, for example, you're having a sale or you're having a launch or you're doing something. And when you get to that place, right? Because if we talk about faith and we talk about knowing that we're always provided for, when you get to that place where it's like, it doesn't look like this is going to happen. Like, it doesn't look like only 5 people have signed up so far. Like, what do I do? I want you to think about what are the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are associated when it looks like it's not going to happen. Because this is where we get tripped up. This is where this is where everybody messes up. Because we say we have faith. We say we know that we're provided for. We say that we know we'll be okay. But then we start to panic and stress out and drop our vibration because we think it's not going to happen. So I want you to explore that. What are the thoughts, feelings, and emotions associated when it seems like it's not going to happen? And then finally, I have 2 questions. What part of the chase are you addicted to or accustomed to? What part of the chase, the chasing after money, the not having money, the kind of roller coaster ride that you've been on with money, what part of that feels good for you? What part of it are you accustomed to? What part of it are you possibly addicted to? And what feels good about the suffering? So I know you're all going to say the same thing that Christine said, which is, no, nothing about this feels good. But the reality is something does. Because if it didn't, you wouldn't be where you're at. You have to remember that. I told you guys about this story in Meant for Millions about how I had this realization once that was like, this didn't have to do with money, but it's the same thing. So one day I just had this random thought pop into my head. And now I know that it probably wasn't random. It was probably a conscious decision, is that I had this thought that if I lost a lot of weight and if I got skinny, that something would happen with my relationship. And it was so interesting because I had realized that even though I'm not at the weight that I want to be, even though I want to lose weight, I kept sabotaging because I had this underlying belief that if my body changed, my relationship would change. So I want you to think about things like that when it comes to money. Even the dynamic between you and your partner when it comes to money, that could be something that changes, you know? So yeah, lots and lots and lots of things to explore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the journaling prompts here. Take the time to go through these things. And I want you to keep digging. I want you to keep asking yourself these questions until you get that aha moment, until you get that breakthrough, like, oh shit, this is why. Because once you know this is why, we can change it, and we can pretty much change it instantly. So I want you to explore these questions, and some you might spend a little bit more time on than others. Some might not be relevant for you, and that's okay. I want you to still explore them. I want you to answer these questions. I want you to journal about this. And I want you to uncover the root cause of why you are where you're at, why you've been on this cycle for whatever the period of time is that it is for you. Why have you been on this cycle? Because the minute that you find out what it is, we can shift it.